Hi everyone, you're watching the virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Lodha. Well, today's topic for discussion would be on GST and litigation, never ending. Now let's first delve into what GST is all about. The goods and services tax is a successor to value added tax, which is used in India on the supply of goods and services. Both VAT and GST have the same taxation slabs. It is collected from the point of consumption and not point of origin like previous taxes. Now, this tax came into effect through the implementation of the 101st Amendment made to the Constitution of India by the Government of India. So, what were its objectives? Well, to achieve the ideology of one nation, one tax, to subsume a majority of the indirect taxes in India, well, to eliminate the cascading effect of taxes, to curb tax evasion, the list goes on and on. So, talking about the components of GST, well, we have the CGST, which is the tax collected by the central government on an intra-state sale. Then we have SGST, UTGST. It is the tax collected by the state government or union territories on an intra-state sale. And then we have IGST, which is a tax collected by the central government for an interstate sale. And now delving into what merits and demerits of this tax structure would be, well, as we mentioned, removal of cascading effects creates a common national market. It eliminates multiple layers of taxation. There's always this ease of doing business. It also boosts productivity of logistics. With advantages also come disadvantages, some of which are as follows. Well, there is an increased burden of compliance. There's a lack of necessary infrastructure because GST is an online taxation system, and the IT infrastructure as well as training of officers. Now, also talking about the maintainability of writ petition. Now, in the what circumstances is a writ petition under Article 226 of the Constitution of India maintainable? Can the assessment orders be subject matter of challenge in a writ jurisdiction of the Honorable Court? And in what circumstances can the High Court intervene? Is it only when a statutory appeal remedy is not available? Or is it done when the appellate authority lacks jurisdiction, or even in spite of available of an alternate efficacious remedy? When can there be, when is there an entertainability and maintainability of writ petition, which are obviously distinct concepts as held by Honorable Supreme Court of India in Catena of Judgments? Is it done for the purpose of enforcement of any of the fundamental rights in taxation or violation of principles of natural justice, or where the proceedings are wholly without jurisdiction? So today we decided to seek some assistance from an expert in this field who absolutely needs no introduction, no formal introduction. He is a formidable advocate in his own right with a dazzling educational career. So today we are in conversation with Mr. Ravi Gupta, who's an advocate practicing before Honorable Rajasthan High Court for the Jaipur bench. And just to give you all a brief introduction about our amicus for today's session, he's a qualified FCA, a CS, and a lawyer having experience of more than 11 years in indirect tax litigation. He has been practicing as a lawyer specifically in indirect taxation and providing litigation services for cases before all appropriate forums, including the Honorable High Court, CESTAT, Commissioner, Additional Joint Appeals, etc. He's argued many landmark cases of GST before the Constitutional Court, which led to significant importance in evolving of the GST law, which we're going to be discussing in detail. He's a regular faculty at NACIN, where he trains the GST officers. He's also spoken at various tax and trade associations, news channels, and various branches of ICAI, ICSI, and ICMAI. He also regularly contributes to GST articles, which are published in the daily newspapers. So thank you so much, sir, for taking out time, for readily saying yes, for doing a session on our channel. Anything that
Thank you
you
so
wish
much.
to say before we start with your session?
I'm sorry, sir. I pardon.
Anything that you wish to say about our channel before we...
Yes, sir, definitely. It's really inspirable. The channel you operate, how the channel you operate, and the you run the channel for a long time. I'm really inspired with this channel because you invite here the learned advocates, the professors, the senior judges who has contributed in the legal field. I've also heard many of the episodes which are available on the website on the YouTube, and I learned a lot from the experience of the learned professionals that has contributed in your channel, and the way you deal with the persons who contribute here, who discuss here. This is really, commendable. I am lucky that I am here today to discuss, to share my experience with the audience of this, great channel. I congratulate you for the success of this channel in future as well.
Grateful, sir, for all the kind words. Really means a lot to me and my team. So, sir, the stage is set. The floor is all yours. Over to you.
Thank you. So today's our topic is about GST. What was the aim of GST and why it was brought into India? What was the purpose of bringing the GST when there was already a system of taxation since the independence and even before the independence? But after many efforts of many governments, finally the GST was rolled out on 1st of July 17. The main purpose of bringing GST in India was unified tax system, tax structure was required in India because India is divided in many states. So if somebody from outside India wants to do business here, or a person of say Rajasthan wants to do business in many states, then he has to comply with many different laws of taxation of different states. So there was demand that there should be unified tax structure so that the compliance burden can be reduced. The person can do business instead of doing all the time compliances. This was the one of the objective. The another objective was flawless input tax credit, ITC. ITC means whenever we pay something to provide something, to supply something, then the amount of tax which we pay to the supplier, that can be adjusted against the liability of output tax that we collect from the recipients. So there was need of flawless credit across the country so that the ultimate consumer need to bear lesser cost. That was also a, aim of the GST. In addition to this, the aim was reduction of corruption, lesser interference of the authorities, taxation authorities, and ease of doing business. So these were the mere purpose of bringing GST. And after rolling out of GST on July 17, we have seen many changes. And as of now, after around 7 years, 7.5 years of implementation of GST, we find many things have been changed, but many things have been changed adversely also. There are many disputes in GST which are going on at present, and the persons who are at the middle level, we can say MSME, medium small enterprises, they are suffering a lot because of GST, because there are many issues which are lying as of now. The input tax credit are being objected against the spirit of the GST. The registrations are cancelled. There is no remedy available with the taxpayers who wants to do business, who wants to pay tax. There was intention of one nation, one tax, as my you have already said that there was the purpose of one nation, one tax, but that could not get succeed because even now there are more than five slabs in GST: 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, 3%. Other slabs are also there. So one nation, one tax could not be materialized. In addition to this, some states are making their own provisions. So they are changing the draft GST law, the uniform GST law. But these are the, adverse side of the GST law. Every coin has two sides. The brighter side of GST is this has definitely made the business easier. The ease of doing business ranking of India has definitely surged after implementation of GST. The people are getting well versed with the GST law, the structure, IT structure of GST. They are now filing the GST returns regularly. And the figure shows that at the time of implementation of GST, the target of government was 1 lakh crore rupees monthly. But fortunately, India is getting more than 1.75 lakh crores rupees on monthly basis on account of GST. So it shows that the GST has been successful in India, but of course, there are so many challenges in so far as GST is concerned in India. The medium businessmen are suffering a lot. I would throw lights on some issues which are presently lying before the traders, before the manufacturers, before the service providers, and that are leading the litigation. You must be aware about the GST law because you have already practiced GST before Honorable Rajasthan High Court and other high courts as well. The main issues are once the ITC, once the taxpayer buys some goods or services and he makes the payment to the seller supplier. After making the payment, he claims the ITC, input tax credit of the GST amount paid to the supplier. Thereafter, some time happens, the supplier's registration is cancelled by the department due to many reasons, due to fraud practiced by the supplier, due to non-filing of returns, due to some other reasons. And on account of fault of the supplier, the buyers are punished. They are denying the input tax credit. For example, I am the buyer. I'm businessman. I purchased the goods of rupees 1 lakh and I paid 5% GST. Say 1 lakh 5,000 rupees I discharged and I paid to the supplier. And I took the credit of 5,000 rupees in my account. And thereafter, what happens? Something happens against the supplier. Then the 5,000 rupees which I paid to the supplier, the department asked me to reverse that ITC with interest and penalty. So on account of default of the supplier, the other persons are being punished. And most of the litigation in GST revolves around this issue. In addition to this, there are draconian provisions. Draconian provisions are there. Like there is, if somebody fails to acknowledge the notices and orders issued by the department that are issued on the portal only, there is no mechanism of issuing the notices and orders in hard copy. They are not sent. They are generally uploaded on the portal, and it is expected by the government that everybody is checking their GST portal on daily basis. If you don't check, then your timeline, if you miss the timeline, then there is no remedy available. The timeline of appeal is fixed there, 3 months plus 1 month. The other replies are also need to be filed within 2 or 3 days or 7 days sometimes. But when one miss the deadlines, then he is left with no remedy.
So
Then
at
he
this
appeals.
juncture, I wish to interrupt, and I have a
Please.
quick question. So, in case if the GST portal fails to function for some reason, for some XYZ reason, and or let's say that the assessee does not have the necessary infrastructure or the support system, he's received something which he's not able to download for whatever reasons best known to him or her. So, in those circumstances, can there be a physical copy that can be furnished? Can they write it mail to a letter to the department, or how do the correspondences work in that case?
Yes, in that case, sir, this is very relevant question, and this is the query which is being asked by many taxpayers also from the professionals. There is no mechanism available. There are mode of service of the orders and show cause notices. So it is upon the department that how they want to serve the notice and orders. If a person who is not very much well versed with the technology, he doesn't operate the email, he doesn't operate the mobile much, he doesn't operate the GST portal, then and something happens against him, department contemplates any action against him, then he has no remedy. He can of course apply for the certified copy of the any communication, but so far as remedy is concerned, on based on the communication received in hard copy, there is no remedy available. So high courts are being approached in those cases. So this is the problem which we are facing. But on brighter side, if we check the brighter side, then there are many things which have changed, which have definitely drastically changed in tax administration system of India. Like GST refunds was there was very difficult to get the refund of GST earlier. In service tax and VAT regime, it was very hard to get back the refund. But now in GST, they have made it completely operational through the technology. Automatically, when returns are filed, when shipping bills are filed by the exporters, when the taxpayer applies, automatically he gets the refund back in his bank account without any human intervention. So this was a major change which definitely helped a lot to the exporters and the taxpayers of the country. So definitely there is positive change also, but due to teething stage, we are in teething stage of GST. 7 years have been completed, and now it's 8 years is going on. Eighth year is going on. So in future, we can see that definitely there will be some more favorable changes to the taxpayers, and it will become tax-friendly legislation of tax structure in India. So now I would also like to discuss something about the High Court. When the role of High Court arises and how one can approach High Court, in what situations one can approach the High Court and High Court exercise their jurisdiction. So regarding that, we all know about 226. Article 226 of the Constitution of India, which says that High Court has the ample power to issue the writ in case of infringement of fundamental rights or any legal right. So generally, High Court always has the view that when one is having alternate remedy, in case any person is agreed with any action, then if he has alternate remedy of filing the appeal, then High Court doesn't entertain the petitions. But there are some principles which have emerged by the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court, like in Radhakrishnan Industries, Godrej Sara Limited. These are the recent judgments which have whereby some other concepts have emerged. The Supreme Court has laid down there are 5 situations majorly when a High Court can entertain the petition, can exercise their extraordinary jurisdiction. The situations are when there is infringement of fundamental right, there is violation of principles of natural justice. Principles of natural justice means if either is not afforded the personal hearing or the order was passed without discussing their submissions. The order was passed saying without application of mind. That is also covered in the principles of natural justice. In addition to this, lack of jurisdiction. If somebody having no jurisdiction exercising their powers, then also writ petition can be filed and High Court can entertain the petitions. Uh, then there is challenge of virus of law. If any provision of law is to be challenged, then directly High Court can be approached. In addition to this, in a very relevant case, the Godrej Sara Limited, Honorable Supreme Court has laid down that where any question of law is subject matter of the case, then that case should be decided by Honorable Court itself instead of remanding it back to the authorities. So these are the situations when one can approach the High Court and High Court can entertain the petitions. Honorable Rajasthan High Court also in many cases, fortunately I also reviewed some cases in which the extraordinary jurisdiction was invoked and High Court passed the order when there was violation of natural justice, when there was lack of jurisdiction, when there was complete absence of application of mind. These were the situations when High Court also decided the issue in favor of the taxpayers, in favor of the litigants. So this is about the jurisdiction of High Court also. Uh, I would like to tell you if you have any something interesting in your mind which you want to know related to GST, I would be very happy to address. Uh,
So I have one question for you.
please.
So what happens in a case when the authority, let's say, issues a show cause notice, without the force, without the statutory force of law or something which is prima facie frivolous or issued by an authority who's not authorized to issue it. On one hand, the assessee decides to challenge it by way of a writ. Then should the same assessee respond to the notice, or because the subject matter is now sub judice before the Honorable High Court, what would be your take
In
on
those cases, I always suggest that if we file the petition against the show cause notice,
show cause notice? Yeah.
means adjudication proceeding is ongoing and we approach the court and High Court grants a stay.
Yes.
In those cases, there is no need of replying the show cause notice. We just need to bring into consideration of the proper officer that High Court has issued the stay order. In all other cases, when the High Court doesn't please to grant the stay, in those cases, definitely we should reply to the show cause notice also on merits. And simultaneously, if High Court entertains, then we can continue our proceedings.
So in
In
case
many
if there's an interim order operating, then
yes,
there's no need to respond to the show cause
then
notice.
no need to
But in
respond.
case of an absence of an interim order, when merely
Yes,
notices have been issued, but no interim protection has been granted,
yes.
thereafter there is imperative
Otherwise, what would happen? The department will issue the order against the taxpayer, and the recovery proceedings can be initiated
recovery will be initiated.
unless there is interim relief given by the court. So in those cases, the case should be handled tactfully and simultaneously the proceedings can run. Recently in Maple Luxury Homes, in Ammo Industries, in other some cases also, the High Court has decided that when there is complete absence of mind, complete application of mind, the authorities didn't work properly, they had arbitrary attitude, Then High Court decided the matters and sent it back to the concerned authorities with the guidelines that one should follow the provisions of law. Without following the provisions of law, the litigation should not be, I mean, arouse. These are the guidelines which has been laid down by the by Honorable High Court and Supreme Court also. One more aspect I would like to bring before my audience, who are viewers of this channel, that there are some other provisions also which are draconian, which are affecting the GST law adversely. What is that? There are provisions of arrest when there is apprehension with the GST authorities that somebody has evaded the tax without having any material evidence, only apprehension. Although word is used isn't to believe, but unfortunately in many cases we have seen that the taxpayer was alleged to have evaded some amount of tax, say 1 CR, 2 CR, 5 CR. In those cases, without any adjudication, the arrests are being made. The taxpayers are arrested, and thereafter they file the bail application before the lower court, subordinate courts, then the appellate authority, then the high court. So in those cases, many of the taxpayers who are genuine, but they couldn't get chance to prove their case, they were caught and they were put behind the bars. So that was also a draconian provision that should be avoided, because Honorable Supreme Court has said many times that civil laws should be kept separate and civil nature suits should not be converted into a criminal nature. So the Honorable Supreme Court decision is pending, but as of now, this is the problem which we are facing. So in those cases also, there is a flood of litigation before Honorable High Courts regarding the issue of arrest and regarding the issue of GST, I mean, revision. Many times searches are conducted without following the guidelines that has been laid down by Supreme Court. In those cases also, the honorable courts can be approached and they have intervened and they have tried to protect the fundamental rights of the taxpayers, the citizens of India.
And lastly, sir, what is the way ahead according to you? So, what are the deficiencies that have plagued this system, and how to get rid of those deficiencies, how to cure them? What would be your take on that?
Yes, in my opinion, this would be a game changing. And as we are increasing in the ease of doing business, government is taking cognizance, sometimes slowly or sometimes very quickly, but they are taking cognizance of the issues of the taxpayers. And after taking cognizance, after taking note of the issues, the GST council meetings are held, and they are held with the participation of all the stakeholders, like all the states of India as well as union government. So they sit together and they decide the issues which are being faced by the taxpayers. And then they issue the circulars, board issue circulars, notification. Some changes are brought by the authorities, by the government, by the legislation as well. So in future, we hope that India will definitely become tax friendly, as it was the motto of this GST law. But as of now, it is very true that we should confess that we could not get success as we were expecting. So for the medium businessmen, it is mandatory businessmen for the medium businessmen, it is mandatory to save them, to make the complex structure easier, to assist them, to give them hand to comply with the provisions, and to take the lenient views in case of procedural lapse. So if these are followed, these guidelines are observed, then in future it will be a good tax, and as Honorable Prime Minister has said, good and simple tax. It can become good and simple tax instead of Gabbar Singh tax that is said by the aggrieved taxpayers.
So one last question, what would be your piece of advice to all the young lawyers who wish to pursue taxation, the law of taxation as a field of area of specialization? Because there is obviously this misconception or this narrative that is built that taxation is boring, too dry, nobody wants to take it up, a lot of reading required. At times you also have to pursue a professional course for the purpose of getting comprehend this complicated concept. So what would be your piece of advice?
My advice is GST is really very interesting. Taxation law is itself very interesting. definitely demands some time to learn, to study, but ultimately it is remunerative, it is very interesting. And if one get into this at present, then future is bright because there is a lot of litigation in GST. Now many cases are pending because the appellate tribunal has not been formulated, but that is going to be functional from the next March. We are hopeful for that. So after that, appeals would be filed to the High Court, and there are a lot of litigation which is not going to end in next 10 to 15 years at least. So the young lawyers can choose this field and can definitely flourish their career in this field. It's really a good field, income tax as well and GST as well. So both are good.
Well, thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a very insightful session. To all the viewers who are watching, our email is mentioned on the channel. In case if you still have any queries, feel free to write to us. We'll be more than happy to forward the same to our Amicus for today's session, Mr. Gupta. Sir, anything that you wish to say now that we are wrapping this episode up as parting words?
I'm really thankful to you, Jesser, because you invited me here and you gave me chance to interact with the audience. And you brought a very relevant topic of GST that is a area of my interest also. And the way you are running this channel is definitely commendable. And I wish the success of this channel, the more participation of the audience, and a bright future for this channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. So it's goodbye for now. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you.